How's it going, guys? We're in a cash game. This is a 10 cent, 25 cent blind structure buy-in. I bought in for 25 bucks. And the reason I got into this particular game was because it's an aggressive game. There's some big pots actually in it. So when you see that, when you decide to go into a game like this prior, when you see loose aggressive play, you actually want to tighten up your game and just pick your spots. I don't want to go against players with weak hands just because they're playing loose. And the opposite, of course, would be true if you get to a table where everybody's playing tight. Then, of course, then you can bully the table around a little bit. But because it's cash, if I can sneak into some pots with hands like this, king two suited, I am certainly going to limp in and try to catch something. I could probably even raise. But this has been an aggressive player over here on the left, so I don't want to get raised. I'll just see the pot for cheap if I can. But when you sit down at any cash table, you really need to observe the play, and you need to analyze. You need to figure out what's going on in the first couple of orbits. Who's the aggressive players, who's the tight players, who knows what they're doing, who doesn't. Try to spot the fish at the table. Sorry about that. Had to pause it just for a second. Okay, so bid a little bit, 50 cents. We could have took a stab at that, but there's really no money in the pot, and it just wasn't worth it to me, so that's why I didn't do anything with that pot. Now we do have two in the small blind and big blind. We've only got small stacks, so I'll go ahead and limp in this too, just because it's cash. But if one of these guys shove over the top or make any kind of raise, because they're a small stack, I'm not interested in calling them because I'm not going to get paid off if I do hit. That's the problem when you're playing smaller stacks. There's no reward potential. If a big stack puts in a big raise, if a big stack puts in a big raise, and I'm more apt to call them on trying to catch a set, for example, because of this situation. This is an interesting bet. Bet's 50 cents. It is a weak bet. It looks like a weak king to me. If this player, I don't know anything what this player is doing, but normally in a situation like that, I would have re-raised based on that bet. 50 cents into $1.45 is a really weak bet with the flush draw. I don't know if my second pair is good. I do believe this person has a king, but I think they have a weak king. And yeah, now betting 50 cents again. Same bet. It looks like a total draw. And that 10 is not a card we would want to see. We would have made a two pair, but of course there's a flush here, so I have to believe someone has a flush. And to be honest, I've got no clue who, because the guy that bet small could have been betting small to see the next card for cheap. Now I believe this person still has a king. Oh, they had a flush. Wow. Yes, this guy was bluffing. It looked like it. So that's exactly what this player was doing. This player was betting small to see the flush free. I'm going to call this player because if I hit, I know I can get paid off. This could be a little tricky. I don't give this player much credit, but I am going to bet out at this because I think the player has a little bit of respect for me so far. If they come over the top, then I'll just get away from this. Alright, so we take that down. Seven three. I don't care to play that. I'm just going to pre-fold that. The reason I could make that last play is because I believe this player believes that since I called their raise, I do have an ace or queen. So when you remember your bets, you have to think back what you've already done previously and see if it makes sense. If it makes sense to the person, then they'll believe you. Players that don't make sense is how you get called and lose your stack. I was playing a game last night where I had limped in with Ace King under the gun. This was an in-person tournament, and I was expecting someone to raise so I could do a re-raise and isolate. But what ended up happening was the whole table limped. So I was like, man, this sucks. So of course an ace hit, and I was first to act, and it was a full table, 9 people, and I bet a small bet just to see where I was at. Well, I had 2 players call me, but there was also a flush draw on the board. And hang on just one second. And fold this. And 2 players called me, and of course I'm out of position. Well, the next card was a blank, and so I put in a bigger bet. Well, one guy debated and ended up calling me. Then the last player folded. River came, and the river came was a 10. So now there's an ace and 10 out there, and still didn't complete the. It actually did complete the flush. I'm sorry, it completed the flush, and it gave me a 10. And the reason the 10 scared me was not because of the flush card. I mean, the flush was obviously a scare too, but the reason the 10 also scared me was because I know a lot of players will play with ace 10. Well, I had made a bet, and I actually lowered my bet to make it look like a sucker bet, to where I was just trying to get paid off like I was betting my flush draw. Well, it didn't work, and a guy came over the top, and when he did, I had really debated. And hang on one more second. This guy called a raise, by the way, out of position with Jack 9 offsuit. I don't know about that. I'm going to try to limp in here. But anyway, he came over the top of me and made a big bet. And the problem is, I was actually going to fold because I was convinced my pair of aces were no good. I'm going to get away from this hand, especially if this guy folds. I don't see any reason to play it when this guy bets 4 times. The big blind when he hasn't played any hands, especially now it's just him and I'm going to give him the respect and just let it go. I don't want to catch a king there or a jack, and then he's got me dominated when I'm in a trap hand. I'll certainly limp with this. But anyway, the guy, the mistake that he made was he was really sitting there nervous, and I could see it. And he was trying to get me to fold. He said, "I'll show you one. I'll show you the card." Well, then he showed me the ace. So, but the way he kept trying to go on and on and on convinced me that he was weak. All right, we're certainly going to call this. We're getting really good odds. I'm just trying to catch my 6. I'm sure I'm behind here. I don't even want to take a stab at that, but all right, $1.50 bet into a 405. He does this bet really quick. I'm sure I got 1 or 2 plays here. I can just come over the top, or I can fold, and I'm going to just fold because yeah, of course. And I just didn't believe that I was ahead at that point. His bets seem really cautious to me. He's nervous. Kind of a weak bet here. I don't want to call with my pocket 6s to a raise to try to catch a 2-outer. Really, the only way I believe I can win after the flop is if I hit a 6. So I know a lot of players would call that, but mathematically I think that's, well, it is the wrong decision because it's you're not getting good odds. Of course, in hindsight, we would have hit it on the turn, but you can't play that way. But anyway, back to the cash game I was playing last night, an in-person game. The guy was really nervous, and that was his mistake. And finally, I ended up calling him, and I, in fact, did have the best hand.